These are our Easons must-reads choices for autumn of 2019. Sinead and I have picked 8 books that we think there won't just be one. There might be 2, 3, or even 4 that you might like to get your hands on. Let's not be greedy. But first of all, I'm going to start with this. It's E.M. Reepe's Skin. E.M. Reepe is an Irish author. This is her second book after Red Dirt, her award-winning debut. This is called Skin. The book starts with Natalie. Natalie is in Bali. She is Irish. She is obviously running away from something. Initially, it appears as if she is running away from a bad relationship, and she's running away from a job that she hates. She finds herself thrown into a corner of the world that she's entirely unfamiliar. Throughout the course of the book, we find her going to New Zealand and Australia. She ends up in South America at one point, and in rural Ireland and back in Holland. She's always on the move. But then you figure out fairly quickly that it's not necessarily her life she's running away from, but it's who she is and herself and her perception of her own body as well. Body image is a huge theme throughout the course of Skin. Natalie is a relatively unique character in terms of things that I've read over the last couple of years. The book itself is fantastic and it's enormously worth your time. It's called Skin and her name is E.M. Reepe.
My first book is Ask Again, Yes. This is by Mary Beth Keane. This is kind of been described as a modern day Romeo and Juliet, which is quite apt actually. It's about 2 families who live next door to each other. The 2 dads are cops. They're friendly, but they're not very friendly. But the 2 children, Kate and Peter, are best friends. And as they enter their early teens, they suddenly become more than friends. They start falling in love. And then this one night when they're about to cement their love, a horrendous incident happens. And the 2 families are torn apart forever. So the book follows them through 40 years of their lives, and it's about issues within families, it's about alcoholism, it's about mental health, it's about regret, it's about love, it's about grief. And somehow, through the years, Kate and Peter's lives still become connected and intertwined, and you are rooting for them the whole way. And it is kind of a modern day Romeo and Juliet, but it's a brilliant book because you become so invested in both families and you feel such sympathy for both families. And even though one family did another family a terrible thing, you still are rooting for both families and you really want Kate and Peter to get together. And I won't tell you what happens in the end, but it's not straightforward, let's put it like that. But it is a beautiful book and it stayed with me long after I finished it.
It's always worth making a very big deal over a new Edna O'Brien book. This is her 18th novel. It's called Girl. No, it has nothing to do with Country Girl or with the Country Girls trilogy, as people have asked me already. This is a very, very different book. It is set in Nigeria in 2014, a story that many people will remember. The abduction of a series of schoolgirls by the Boko Haram militant group in Nigeria at the time. And it's a story that was followed around the world. It made national headlines over the course of a year and a half. But what Edna O'Brien does is takes us inside that story. Miriam, who's the main character, is one of the girls who's abducted. And we follow it from the very beginning of the story when it occurs, and she has no idea what's going on in the world. She has no sense of who these people are. Through the abduction, through her enslavement, through her physical and sexual enslavement to Boko Haram, and then out the far side of the story to the point where she ends up, and this isn't a spoiler, this is something people will be aware of, that a lot of the girls ultimately ended up making it back into the real world again, and to how she is dealt with by both her family and her community when she ends up back home again. Yes, it's a bit Nigeria in 2014. It can also very much, because it's Edna O'Brien, be read as being about Ireland of a certain time and of a certain era very, very easily. It's exquisite. It's everything you want it to be. It is the one book I think this autumn that I'm going to be making sure I get into everybody's hands if at all possible. It is the wonderful Edna O'Brien, and the book is called Girl.
My next book is The Secrets We Kept by Lara Prescott. I absolutely loved this book. It is such a brilliant story. So it's based on the true story of when the CIA decided to get 2 female spies who were taken out of the typing pool in the CIA and sent to Russia to get Dr. Zhivago, the manuscript of Dr. Zhivago, and bring it back to the West and publish it, because nobody in Russia would publish it because they felt it was too controversial and kind of anti-government. So it's this amazing story of these 2 incredible female spies that go to Russia to get the book, to bring it back to the West, to publish it. It's also the beautiful love story between Boris Pasternak, who wrote Dr. Zhivago, and his mistress, Olga, who the beautiful Lara is based on. So it's this incredible story. So it's got intrigue, and it's got politics, and it's got love and passion, and you're at the edge of your seat. You're going to go, are they going to get caught? Are they going to get found out? And it's a fantastic book built around a real story, which is absolutely fascinating. I couldn't put it down.
Yeah, and when I read about it, movie waiting to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to take a very swift turn from Edna O'Brien's book to my next one. This is Niall Williams's This Is Happiness. This was pressed into my hands a while ago by somebody who said, I want you to read this book. It's about rural electrification. Don't let that stop you. The book is set in Ireland in and around the time of rural electrification. Noel is 17 years old. Noel has come back from having made a very bad hand at becoming a priest. He's decided it's not for him, and he ends up back in Faha, which is the small village that his family come from. He meets Christy. Christy is a much older man who comes to Faha as part of the rural electrification project. You find out fairly quickly that Christy has not old scores to settle, but that there is a history with Christy and the village and some of the people there, but that kind of unfolds quite slowly, and I'd rather not ruin that for you just yet. And then the entire story is based around the rural electrification of a small Irish village. It is so exquisite. It is so funny. You will find yourself at moments just giggling to yourself like a small child. I love the story, the way it's told. His language is beautiful. If you've ever read Niall Williams before, you'll be fully aware that the man knows how to turn a sentence. Yeah, hugely so. It's called This Is Happiness. It's by Niall Williams, and very different to maybe some of the other ones we've chosen, but loved it.
This another choice is Fleischman is in Trouble by Taffy Brodesser Ackner. This is just hilarious, but also very thought-provoking. So it's about Toby, who's a consultant in his middle age, and he's going through a horrible divorce with his wife Rachel, who's a very successful agent. And Rachel has disappeared and left him and their 2 children, which is kind of odd, and you're kind of wondering all the way through what's going on with that. So very much Toby's point of view is the first probably 2/3 of the book, and although he's very upset about the divorce, he's having this incredible new life of online dating. He's getting more action than he's ever had in his life, and kind of having a ball really on the one hand. But you're kind of wondering what's going on with Rachel, and then eventually sort of towards the middle end of the book, we hear Rachel's voice, which is very, very thought-provoking, and it's kind of very interesting to hear her side of the story and why she disappeared. So really, it's kind of an amazingly insightful study of marriage, of the breakdown of a marriage, of stress, anxiety. It's very funny, it's very quirky, but it is also, as I said, very thought-provoking. But you will absolutely love this book. It is a joy to read, and if you like Maria Semple, you will definitely love this book.
I'm going to finish off with this. I don't really do a lot of biographies or autobiographies ever. I don't really read a lot of biographies or autobiographies. Unusual for a man, I know. Christopher Eccleston is a name that I hope rings a bell with you. He's a British actor, and if it doesn't, maybe you'll recognise him by seeing him here on this. You might know him from our Friends in the North many years ago. He was the first Doctor Who in the reboot of the series before David Tennant became Doctor Who with Russell T Davies. And at the moment, you maybe see him in the A Word and stuff like that on TV. He's been in tons of movies over the years as well. He is an extraordinarily charismatic and gifted actor on screen, but he's also somebody who doesn't really talk about himself, his life, or any of the things that occur around that, apart from growing up working class. He's from Salford. This book is 2 things. It's about growing up working class, very working class in that particular part of the UK at the time that he grew up, about how unlikely it was for him to become an actor and a successful actor at that, his family's expectations around that. And then that's coincided with the story of his father and his father's slow descent into dementia that he starts talking about at the very beginning of the book as well. And he unpicks both of those stories throughout the course of that. So part of it is to see somebody like him tell that story about himself. He has broader themes about the nature of class in the UK and about dealing with both his own mental health issues and with dementia, but he tells it in such an occasionally very funny and very warm and wonderful way. I definitely think you should grab a copy of this. It's called I Love the Bones of You, which is a brilliant title in and of itself, quoting Elbow. And that's from Christopher Eccleston, and that's my final one.
Continuing with the theme of biographies and autobiographies, this is Vicky Feelin's Overcoming. Vicky doesn't really need any introduction. She is, of course, the amazing woman who went to court to expose the cervical check scandal. You know, I always admired her, and felt incredibly sorry for her that she got cancer, and she got a diagnosis that is not good. But when I read this book, I actually couldn't believe that she's still standing, because her whole life, from the age of about 19, she has had to deal with so much adversity and pain and suffering and mountains to climb. Again, I don't want to give away too much, but her life has been so complicated and so difficult from a very young age. It's amazing how she's still standing. And I actually emailed her after reading it because I was so moved by it. And I said, I don't know how you're still standing. And she said, I actually don't know how I am either. But it's heartbreaking. And, you know, you admire her so much, her courage, her determination, her tenacity. She is an extraordinary woman, and this is an extraordinary story.
And those are our 8 Easton must-reads choices for autumn of 2019. We hope there's something in there for everyone, and we hope you enjoy reading them as much as we do.
Absolutely.